The Longbox Crusade presents FanFilmFridays. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Fan Film Fridays. I am your host, Clinton Robinson, down here in the basement, or should I say, basement log, stardate 11111111. I don't know how these dates work. Point one. So I'm just chilling down here, dreaming of the stars. You know, those things that you really can't see in a basement. But thankfully, folks, somebody who is a star in his own mind managed to make that little trek over to LBC HQ, and quite frankly, the LBC crew kind of shoved him down here with me because they don't want him up there either. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, and aliens out there in the universe, welcome the one, the only, the incredibly irredeemable Shag.
Yay! Thanks for having me. I brought my own captain's chair, by the way. I hope you don't mind it. Just scoot over a little bit. There we go. There it is. It's comfy.
You realize that's the next generation captain's chair, right?
No, it's not. Don't even pull the... Wait. Why's the headrest look... Son of a bit...
Don't worry. I'm sure there's a next generation footstool around here. You can just kind of lean back, kick your feet up. It's amazing what Jared finds at the yard sales these days.
It's the plush carpet that really makes it work. Pulls it all together.
Ah, yes. Wouldn't you have loved to have been the guy whose entire job was to vacuum the carpet on this? Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Shag, wonderful to have you here. Since, you're down here chilling with me instead of up there hanging with the quote-unquote cool kids.
Oh, I've met them. I don't know that qualifier would qualify.
Since you're down here, would you like to, watch a fan film by any chance?
Sure. This sounds like a great idea.
You do know what fan films are, right?
Right. They're movies that are made by my fans, right? Like,
yeah. The electric one, the battery-powered one, the little pocket one, the kind that folds up. Yeah, your fans.
Of course I know what fan films are.
So what is your history with fan films since, you happen to be a first-timer down here?
So, no, that's fair. So, I don't know when I would start being aware of fan films, right? Because, they go back a long time. As a kid, I filmed my Punisher action figure in stop-motion animation moving across a table. Is that a fan film? I don't know. It depends on your definitions. But I remember, pretty much with the advent of the internet, watching all kinds of fan films. I have very vivid memories of Troops, which is it's so much fun, right? Troops is great with the Bad Boys theme.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember the first superhero one that really stuck out in my head as being good. I think it was called Grayson. And just so you guys know, before we start recording, I absolutely was convinced Clinton had already covered it here on the show. But it was a fan film basically all about Dick Grayson in the Nightwing role. And it had a Joker. It had it had the whole thing. Anyway, I watched the trailer for that over and over and over. And I don't know if there actually was a film or it was just a trailer. But either way, going back pretty much to the advent of the internet is my experience with fan films.
Okay. And I assume since you brought your own captain's chair that you are a fan of Star Trek.
I am. I absolutely am. That goes all the way back to probably 82, 81, somewhere in there.
Okay, so who's your favorite captain?
Okay, now this gets into all kinds of arguments of who's the best, or whatever. You asked favorite, so let's be very specific about that.
Yeah, I'm not going to delve into that that murky realm of fan fights. I just want to
Yes.
know, who's your favorite?
My favorite is James T. Kirk, specifically the movie era. We're talking like Star Trek, motion picture through Star Trek 60 on Discovery Country. That is my favorite captain for Star Trek. I love that era of Kirk. It probably because that's what was new when I started getting involved with Star Trek. But that is my absolute favorite. But I gotta tell you, Pike from Strange New Worlds is really chasing him. Like I didn't think that was possible. But like more so even than Picard was. I'm really digging Anson Mount in Strange New Worlds. Now it's only not even halfway into the second season. So by the time we get, I don't know, let's just assume 7 seasons, this could completely change. But as of right now, I am just crazed for Pike.
Okay, so what are your opinions on a certain Captain Robert April?
So am I giving my opinions or the history? What am I doing here on this? You tell me, buddy.
Well, enlighten people that might just be sitting there raising their eyebrows all Spock style. That like, who is Captain Robert April?
Fair enough. So Captain Robert April, who, by the way, does have a reoccurring role in Strange New Worlds. He is Pike's supervisor. I think he's an admiral now, or maybe commodore or something like that. But he calls him Bob. He calls him Bob April. Anyway, Robert April was the captain of the Enterprise before Christopher Pike. And this was established all the way back in the animated series. So they did an animated series episode that featured Robert April and his wife. And they were old people. And the whole episode was about them getting younger and stuff like that. That was really the only quote-unquote canon appearance of Robert April for a long time. And that is also assuming that you accept the cartoon, the animated series, as canon, which most people do, but you never know. So that was the only place there. And then Robert April kind of went into legend. Like someone somewhere decided eventually that Robert April, if it had been live action, would have been portrayed by a young Gene Roddenberry. So, like, there was a Star Trek. I want to say it was like a Star Trek encyclopedia or something. Someone's probably already writing in, going, "No, with a special Star Trek, blah blah blah." Okay, I get you. I gotcha. Anyway, they decided that Robert April would be represented by a young photo of Gene Roddenberry, being kind of the first captain, which is kind of a clever thing. And so, a lot of people think of Robert April as looking like a young Gene Roddenberry. For me personally, my Robert April came from the books. Diane Carey wrote 2 of my favorite Star Trek books. And I'm a big Star Trek novel reader. I love me Star Trek books. And she wrote Final Frontier, which was this big, thick Star Trek book. It was I think it was the 3rd, what they call giant pocket Star Trek books. And this would be probably, 86. I'm just shooting that off the top of my head. And then she did a sequel called Best Destiny. And in both of those cases, it told this story of a young James T. Kirk and his father, George Kirk. George, in this version of Star Trek history, George was a security officer and became the first officer on the Enterprise when Robert April was in charge. So it was Robert April as captain. His first officer was George Kirk, and he was the head of security and first officer. And they had these 2 books together, and I really, really enjoyed them. And I read them when I was much younger, and I reread them just a couple years ago.
All right, so listeners,
thanks for all the commentary on that. Do you have any history with Robert April?
Just the cartoon.
Okay, all right. So you've seen that. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a giant 11-foot replica of the Enterprise in my garage, Shag.
I don't know whether you're just making that up as a riff or that they made one for this fan film. Because they apparently.
I know that they made one for the fan film, and I'm hoping that your wife is telling you have to sell it next week.
Well, let's not discuss that. They had to pay for this fan film somehow.
Yeah, we'll get to that too.
Uh-huh.
All right, folks. So, as you may have noticed, we haven't actually said what our fan film is, and mostly that's because I'm just assuming you read the show notes, because why wouldn't you? But for those of you who didn't, this is a fan film called Star Trek First Frontier, and it's all about our lovely hero, Captain Robert April. Star Trek First Frontier was uploaded to YouTube back in September of 2020 by Kenny Smith. The director was Kenneth or Kenny Smith. Writers, Keith Brooks, Chad Dowdy, and Kenneth Smith. And I've got a long cast list here, folks. Not as long as on the on the Street Fighter High fan films, thank goodness, but close enough. Cast is Robert Pralgo as Captain Robert April, Tara Ox as Dr. Sarah April, Barry Corbin as John April, Nichelle Nichols, a name you might be familiar with, as our narrator slash Nyota Uhura. Yes, she is credited as Uhura, folks, but she just has no opening narration. Mark Ashworth as Commander Young, Paul Telfer as Commander McCain, Vince Canlis as Lieutenant Commander Corbin, Brianna Ferris as Lieutenant Lyra, Brandon Thane Wilson as Ensign Brooks, Autumn Dawn Nyrode as Yeoman Nichols, Diane Rodriguez as Lieutenant Ty, James Smith as Lieutenant DePriest, Christine Chaffee as Computer Vocals, Joshua Reed Davis as Nurse Jacobs, Reese Smith, Background Vocals, Stan Harrington as Captain Collins, Robert Bryan Davis as Admiral Taylor, Natalie Perro as Grace April, April Billingsley as Counselor Lynch, and Deborah Childs as Empress Lysix. And that is a lot of Aprils in that cast and crew of characters. Our fan film right now, at time of recording, shows a whopping 4.3 million views, folks. So suffice it to say, this thing is kind of popular.
I feel like there was other places you could watch it beyond even YouTube as well. So that, the number would probably be a lot higher, I would think.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Other places that you could watch it. And in a stunning turn of, well, I won't say events, but, kind of bucking the trend of fan films on here, Mr. Smith himself has said, do please download this, because he's not sure how long Paramount will actually still let them keep it up.
So the reason behind that is Paramount, and I don't remember when, but sometime before the pandemic, cracked down on fan films because there were some really, really high quality Star Trek fan films out there that, quite frankly, were better than what Paramount was putting out at the time. And so Paramount freaked, and they made all kinds of rules about you couldn't do Star Trek fan films longer than a certain length. You couldn't use actual Star Trek actors, all kinds of stuff. Really, really strict rules. And it was really, again, to crack down on fans creating, intellectual property using their intellectual property. And, legally, they absolutely had that right. From a crushing the fan spirit perspective, really a dick move. And like this fan film, I was able to find a little bit of information on it. They started working on it in 2015, long before those new regulations cracked down. So they started working on 2015. They didn't release it till 2020, though. So they were in the midst of producing it when Paramount cracks down on it. So that's what he means when he says, go ahead and please download it because I don't know how long it'll be up there. Well, here we sit. 3 years later, it's still out there. So that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely a positive thing. But unfortunately, we know how megacorps are in these days. So, it could be one of those things that could be up for the next forever because, the internet itself is forever. Or it could be one of those things that they send out a cease and desist and it gets pulled next week.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely get out there and watch it. Download it if you are a huge fan and you want it to stay with you forever. And, of course, folks, this is the part where I tell you that you definitely want to go check the show notes, go watch it, because Shag and I are going to discuss this thing in a little bit. We're going to give all kinds of spoilers. It runs an hour and 20 minutes, so you may have to set aside a little bit more of your day than usual, since we usually do 15, 20-minute kind of fan films. This might take a little chunk.
This is my fault. Clinton was bugging me, saying he wanted me on the show, and I'm like, oh my gosh, have you paid my, my agent? Have you paid my appearance fee? All this stuff. I'm like, all right, if we're gonna make it worth it, let's find a good one. And I'm a big Star Trek guy, so I said, hey, how about this one?
Yeah, I wanted to get my 25 cents worth.
Ouch!
Hey, that's what happens when I find Jared's quarters. But seriously, folks, yeah, we wanted to do something quality. We wanted to do something definitely worth talking about. Needless to say, if it's on this show, we probably do think it's worth talking about. So get out there, watch it. We're going to take a quick trailer break, and on the other side, I will give my very rambly version of a synopsis.
Robert, I need to talk about Starfleet.
Why am I tired of talking about Starfleet? Space is a young man's game, counselor. I've done my time.
They're turning this into a retirement ceremony, are they?
I was staying on Earth for you!
You were staying on Earth for yourself.
Since the supply run
For which you were receiving the Order of Heroism.
Which I visited a lot of funerals.
April, I want you to take the Enterprise.
Sir, I've got something over here you might want to take a look at.
You can see through it, couldn't you?
What's it saying?
All will die.
Like me, sister.
Looks like the device disarmed itself.
Take evasive action now!
Activating warp bubble.
Get away from the window! Fire now!
These are the treasures of the human adventure. And the adventure is just beginning.
Okay, everybody back? Good. All right, full disclosure before I get started. There's a lot that happens in an hour and 20 minutes. There's a lot that's also downtime in an hour and 20 minutes. I've strung it together the best I can, and yeah, here we go. If stuff's out of order, that's okay, because it'll all make sense in the end. Captain Robert April is on Earth, currently not on any active duty status. Despite having saved several Starfleet officers on a recent away mission, he is struggling with PTSD from the ones he was unable to save. This has left him mentally and emotionally handicapped and, at least in his opinion, unfit for command or on any off-world missions. However, his heart longs for space, and he can't admit to himself that he's dying to be aboard the nearly finished Enterprise as it gets ready for its maiden voyage. Captain April gets taken aside and informed that his ship has come into contact with a new, highly violent alien race known as the Serene. Or is it Saren? I forget.
You're in charge of that, not me.
Yeah, we're going to go with Saren. Anyway, the Saren exist only to kill. The Saren sabotage the USS Endeavour during a Starfleet event. Robert manages to get most of the attendees evacuated before the explosion happens, but Admiral Taylor dies in the attack, further convincing Robert that he is unfit for command. However, a forced assignment to the Enterprise and a message from the Saren showing that they have his sister and others captive begins to weigh upon him. Along the way, we learn that Robert's wife, Commander Sarah April, has accepted a post on the Enterprise as Chief Medical Officer. We also meet Navigator Lieutenant Ty, Science Officer Ensign Brooks, and Ship's Communication Officer and Linguist Lieutenant Lyra. Or was it Lyra? Dang it.
We'll go
Names.
with Lyra.
It was Lyra, yeah. A sneak attack by one of the Saren leaves Captain Collins, the commanding officer of the Enterprise, unable to continue command. All the situations have culminated into forcing Robert into assuming command of the Enterprise. Later, the crew find a foreign object that has been hidden aboard the Enterprise. The object is actually an explosive operated by remote signal. Robert manages to get it transported off the ship right at the moment of explosion, saving the ship and crew. The detonation signal gives the Enterprise crew enough information to be able to track where exactly the Saren have been hiding on the far side of Jupiter. Captain April wastes no time taking the Enterprise that way and leading the away mission to stop the Saren and rescue the captives. With the away mission successful, you'd think everything would be leading into a happy ending, but no. Turns out the Saren are getting ready to target Earth with a giant version of the virus gun they shot Captain Collins with. With aid from the USS Constitution and a few other smaller ships, the Enterprise is able to hold off the Saren just so long, but the Saren shields are too much, only lowering to make an attack against the Earth. Sorry, Australia, you got shot invasion style. However, Robert realizes that the Saren don't bother to destroy an incapacitated ship. He orders everything powered off except the weapons during their next hit. His tactic works, and the Enterprise manages to destroy the Saren ship. In the aftermath, we learn that Captain Collins will live, but he will never be able to captain again. Lieutenant Ty and Robert's sister Grace hint at a mutual attraction. In the turbolift, Ensign Brooks informs Captain April that space may just not be for him. Robert, in a moment of personal clarity, informs him that they are allowed to be afraid, but sometimes they just have to push through the fear to achieve their goals. Lieutenant Lyra, who has been dealing with a similar personal struggle about whether to stay in Starfleet or return home and rule over Andoria, sends a communique back to her mother that she's made her choice to stay on the Enterprise. In a closing shot, we see our Enterprise bridge crew. April makes his first log entry as Enterprise captain and orders the ship to set course. But that's not all. In a post-credit sequence, we meet a rather Lenny and Squiggy-looking gentleman, not played by the irredeemable Shag, amazingly.
Ouch.
Attempting to charm two ladies. He introduces himself as Harcourt Fenton Mudd. And that is Star Trek First Frontier. And I've talked far longer than anybody tuning in has probably wanted to hear my voice.
True.
So I'm going to take a drink. And Shag, please tell us what you thought of this film.
Oh, I think it's an absolute blast. There's a lot of stuff to love in here. I'm a sucker for the classic, old days of Star Trek, finding out what it was like before Kirk and things like that. Maybe that's part of the reason I like Strange New Worlds so much. So, and again, for my love of Robert April, which comes from these books, for Final Frontier and Best Destiny, it was exciting to see this version of Robert April. It doesn't match up with the books, so it doesn't match up with Diane Carey's books, but it does do its best to match up, at least with the continuity from the cartoon. So I found it a lot of fun. And as we go through this, we're probably going to poke some holes at it here and there and nitpick some things, because that's what you do when you talk about these things. But I don't think that detracts from my overall enjoyment. And I would say I still really, really enjoyed it, and I recommend it to folks.
Yeah, I'm with you. This was really fun. I really liked the Star Trek history thing. I'm not as well versed in all the novels as you are, which didn't really add or subtract from my enjoyment on this. So there's a lot of stuff to kind of unpack. I will say, first thing, people going into it and expecting a Kirk Spock original series kind of romp, that ain't going to happen here.
Yeah. It's you and I were talking a little off the air earlier. It feels a lot more like The Cage, which is the original pilot with Pike. It feels a lot more like The Cage than it does Where No Man's Gone Before, which is the Kirk pilot. It feels a lot more in that way to me.
Yeah, not just the costuming either. It's very much the tone. A lot of people like to point out about how Pike's talking about possibly quitting Starfleet, maybe becoming a pirate or a slaver, or just anything that's not captaining a starship kind of thing. And Robert April in this has a lot of similar beats.
I did wonder about that. It's in my notes. There's that desire to give up being a captain, right? Both of them had it in The Cage and here. And technically The Cage never aired officially, so I guess it's not really contradicting that, although we all accept The Cage as canon. So let me ask you, is that theme of both April wanting to quit and then being rejuvenated, and Pike wanting to quit and being rejuvenated, is it too similar? Should they have gone a different way?
Overall, I would say no, because April's coming at it from a different perspective. Like, he's really dealing with the whole PTSD thing, which in and of itself I've got notes on. But I mean, like, if you'll remember, Kirk and again, we were talking off air and earlier you were talking about favorite captains and stuff. Kirk in the movies kind of has that similar thing when he realizes, he thinks he might be getting too old to be on a starship.
Yeah.
And Bones just kind of keeps having to remind him, like, look, Jim, I'm older than you, and we're still out here doing this.
Mm-hmm. Spock says it's your first best destiny. Oh, look at that, full circle, all the way back to this discussion.
Mm.
But Pike, if I remember right, with the cage, and I haven't watched it in a while, I want to say, though, Pike wanted to quit also because he had lost people on a mission. He lost his yeoman, his yeoman buddy. So I think it's the same reasons, if I remember right, that both Pike and April want to quit. So I do feel like it probably was a little too similar. Like I wish they had taken a different tactic, but they did what they did, and that's fine. Moving past that, it works. You get a lot of great scenes of him struggling about whether he wants to go on in Starfleet or be a captain or stay Earthside. I guess he doesn't talk about leaving Starfleet, but he talks about staying on Earth rather than going into space and being in charge of people's lives. But, his wife is like, hey, it's not just about you. I've got my own career, so I want to do this too. So I like that aspect. You don't get that with Pike. So having the wife as a different piece, Sarah, is great.
Yeah, this is kind of like...
Sorry, my alarm's going off, and ironically, it's music from Star Trek 2. Which, by the way, is the piece of music, I don't know if the microphone picked it up or not, but the piece of music that was just playing is in this movie. So there we go.
Okay, now we're going to get flagged by YouTube. Thanks, Shag.
Oh, gosh. Go ahead. You say what you're going to say, then that's going to be a perfect transition into music. Go ahead.
But yeah, gosh, where was I going? We were talking about
Sarah.
Yeah, we were talking about that's it. The difference is, Robert is more like the opposite of an 80s action movie cop. He kind of wants to take the desk job.
Yep.
Like there's always the dude that's like, cliche, I'm 2 weeks from retirement. I just want to take a desk job and get out. But that's Robert April right now. It's like, I just want the desk job, but I can't because my heart's in the stars.
And his dad gives him a great pep talk about that, which we're going to come back to that, I think, because the dad's. I want to talk about the casting when we get a chance, so let's talk about the music. So, all right. So the music throughout this entire movie is from the soundtrack of Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. Like, I'm pretty sure every music cue you hear is from the Star Trek II soundtrack. And again, what my phone was just playing is called Clearing All Moorings, I think is what it's called, which is when the Enterprise in Star Trek II leaves space dock, and we all sit there and drool and watch the pretty ship go by and all that. Well, we get that moment in this. They show the Enterprise leave space dock, and they play the exact same piece, and they clear all moorings, and it's very exciting. I love that. But I will say, I feel like they used too much of Wrath of Khan music, and maybe it's because I'm so steeped in the Wrath of Khan soundtrack. I literally know it backwards and forwards. That's what I listen to when I'm on planes and I'm reading a book or whatever. That's what I put on in the background to black out noise. So maybe I'm too steeped in to be the judge, but I just like every track. I'm like, oh, that's Wrath of Khan. Oh, that's Wrath of Khan. That's Wrath of Khan. I'm like, all right, if you're gonna use Star Trek music, maybe pick out a couple from the motion picture, from Star Trek 3, Star Trek 4, Star Trek 5, Star Trek 6. Heck, pull some from Next Gen, whatever. But I don't know. Was it too much Wrath of Khan music, or did you not even notice at all?
I didn't notice it as all being Wrath of Khan.
Okay.
But again, I don't sleep with the vinyl record, strapped to my chest like you do.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
Well, if you roll over on it, Shag.
But keep it warm. It's got to be safe and near my heart.
I'm just sure, Gene Hendricks is going to be upset that, they didn't use more motion picture.
Yeah, he's the one guy.
Yeah. Spoilers, Gene. There's not a 30-minute segment of the Enterprise just pulling out. So no.
You get a decently long one, though. No. I think Gene would be satisfied with the amount of ship porn in this for a fan film. It's pretty good. I mean, like you said, they built an 11-foot model, which blows my mind because I couldn't figure out which scenes were the model and which were CGI. I mean, maybe they were all the model. I don't know.
The director wanted everything to be the model. There are a few moments that are CGI. There are a few moments that if you like really blow it up, watch it on like a TV instead of just computer screen, you can really tell the difference.
Okay.
But it's still not bad.
It looks good. It looks really good.
And And in all fairness, like we're talking, as we've said on several other fan films, we're talking, this is a set of people like doing this at home on their computers, not, going to Paramount and saying, hey, I need a 30-second clip of the Enterprise leaving Space Dock.
Mm-hmm. And do you know how hard it is to build a model that looks good on film? I mean, first of all, it's very, very difficult in general. Make it 11 feet long. There's so much landscape for you to screw up there. You could really mess up the model because there's so much you got to do. And it's clean. It looks perfect. It looks seamless. That's why I was confused and thought some of it may be CGI. It looks so good. But hearing that it's all the model, that's fantastic.
And plus, like, going back to, my old TNG behind the scenes days, I don't think that Enterprise was 11 feet. I think it was more like 8, but
probably. I've stood in front of it, the one at the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
And it's probably not 11. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know that I can gauge 8 to 11 by my eyeball shot, but it's in that realm, let's just say.
Mm-hmm. So, like, on the behind the scenes trivia and how stuff was made, you're talking about like how they're doing the shots and everything with an 11-foot Enterprise. Like, rewind to where you said like they had started this in 2015 and done 5 years worth of filming, editing, producing, all that. They started off, trying to do it on Kickstarter to get it funded.
Yep.
Dude was looking for 130 grand. 6 weeks into it, they only had 30,000 pledged. So he pulled the plug on it, which meant he got nothing of it because it was a make or break. But he realized like you could go on Patreon, and people were just doing the Patreon donations monthly. They realized they had enough from that. They could buy a small plot of land, build basically a barn, and use it as a soundstage. Switch out scenery, bring in the Enterprise, bring out the Enterprise, all that for all the little shots.
So when you say they brought in and out the Enterprise, do you mean the model or the bridge?
All of it.
See, I was wondering about the bridge because the bridge looks really good. And I was wondering if they went to that place in Georgia that will let you film there for a fee. There's like an amazing recreation of the Enterprise in Georgia. I don't remember where it is, but and there's also one. Anyway, I figured maybe they were using that set, but okay.
No, everything that I read, which amounted to like 3 articles, because amazingly, there's not a lot of information out there other than, hey, this film exists.
Right, and fan reviews. Yeah.
Right.
Like you guys probably have heard of Star Trek Memory Alpha and Star Trek Memory Beta. There's nothing out there on there, even though I was convinced I saw an article entry on there. Clint and I have been arguing for 20 minutes before we got started going, yes, no, it's there. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Well, apparently it's not, and I'm wrong, and I don't like that.
Yeah, apparently there is a book called First Frontier, which is about Kirk and Spock fighting dinosaurs or something.
Robert April is mentioned in the book, so that's something.
Okay, but, back to the film itself. Oh, yeah, I did want to mention 2 more real quick things, folks, and then we'll get back to talking about the actual film, I promise. The film itself is dedicated to the memory of writer D.C. Fontana, who had passed like right about the time of the film's release. And you cannot tell me she's not an influence on this film.
Oh, absolutely.
And according to IMDb, this is not Nichelle Nichols' final credited role, but it may or may not be the final time that she does anything Trek related. It's kind of iffy.
Well, it also, I guess, it depends on when she recorded the role, too. Because,
Right.
I mean, she may have recorded it in 2015, for all we know. And so, I mean, yeah, that's a tough one to call.
Yeah. Okay, so going back to the film, what do you think of like some of the ancillary characters?
Okay, so, well, start me off. Like who?
Okay, let's get the elephant out of the room here, Shag.
Mm-hmm.
Lieutenant Lyra.
Okay, so thanks for leading me right to that, because that's where I was going to. So, all right, so Lieutenant Lyra is this hot, sexy Andorian chick, and you can tell that she's painted all blue, right? So you really have a hard time kind of seeing through the makeup and everything, but you can tell they cast a beautiful actress to play her, Brianna Ferris, and sure enough, she's gorgeous. But I felt like she did a good job. she had a hard role with all the makeup and the antennas and all that, and she has to play sort of an alien. So knowing that these people are not straight Hollywood actors, I give them a lot of leeway on their performances. There are a few in here we're going to get to, by the way, that are credited Hollywood actors, but she's not one of them. And I think she did a fine job with the role she was given.
Okay. As far as the character herself, though, like, how do you think she fits in with everything?
Actually, I liked that because I think it added some diversity to the cast. Because they can't really put a Vulcan on there because that would kind of skew things for Spock and everything. So they had to find some option, and I think having an Andorian really kind of added some color to the cast. So I liked the character. I thought Lyra was an interesting character. I liked the idea that she and I don't know whether it was a secret that she was a princess or whether that was public knowledge. I don't know, but I liked that she had left royalty to go on this great adventure. So I think she fit great. What about you?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, even with the cliche of, I'm abandoning my royalty to go and become a space explorer kind of thing. I mean, who's not up for some kind of adventure story like that?
Agreed.
What do you think of Wesley Crusher? I mean, Ensign Brooks.
Okay, so Ensign Brooks, I did not see him as Wesley Crusher. I saw him more as young Chekhov from the Kelvin films. So that's how I really saw him, was more of young Chekhov, because he's even got the curly hair, the mop of curly hair on top kind of thing. But yeah, I could kind of see where he's a Wesley. He's a brilliant. He babbles too much. He throws out a bunch of scientific stuff and gets all nervous. So yeah, he's probably lives somewhere between the two. I thought he was fine, and I liked the speech at the end that Pike gives, or not Pike. April gives. He gives this really great, almost every good Star Trek thing has that emotional punch of a speech that the captain or at least one of the officers gives that really gets to you. And that was the speech. He gave it in the elevator to the kid and saying, when he said you're allowed to be afraid, but reach for the stars. They're not that far. And he pushed the kid, and I thought it was great.
Yeah, I mean, I joke calling him the Wesley Crusher of this. Mostly, he's the "shut up, Wesley" meme more than anything. Just when he starts babbling.
Right.
My only regret is that I don't think we had enough of Brooks contributing to stuff, because you feel like you get introduced to him, then he disappears for 20 minutes, and then he shows back up, and then he disappears again until right at the end.
Okay.
Or that's how I saw it.
Well, he seemed to be the human computer, sort of thing. Every time they had a question, they asked him, what about this? And he's like, well, the warp field will do this, sir. And how long do we have? 6 minutes, sir. So I don't know. So you may be right. If I rewatch
you're kind of equating him to number one.
Oh, well, not in the role of first officer, but yes.
No, but the character computer. Number one.
Yeah, I see what you mean. A little bit.
Okay. What did you think of Lieutenant Ty? The navigator.
Oh, she was great. All right. So she was great. She reminded me a little bit of what am I trying to say? Strange New Worlds. There is the pilot there. I'm blanking on her name. The one with the buzz side hair, and she's funny. Anyway, so it's sort of got a little bit of snarky attitude, a little bit of comeback, but knows she's a great pilot. I kind of like that. Now she, this actress who played that character, Diane, I guess you say, Rodriguez, she's been in a bunch of stuff. She has been acting for a while, going all the way back to 2005, it looks like, when she started. And she's been in a ton of, so she's a real actress, most recently in 25 episodes of The Blacklist. So I think she does a great job.
Yeah, and the character of Lieutenant Ty, I really appreciated her. Felt like she could have carried a few, if this had gone to series, not that it wasn't any attempt to, but if this had been a pilot for some Star Trek spinoff, I feel like she could have carried a few episodes.
Yeah, I think there was story there. Did you get the sense that her and April's sister were hooking up? Is that what was going on? Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
that's what I felt like too.
Yeah, you got some good moves. Yeah, I bet I could show you a few good moves.
Yeah, felt like that.
And of course, we cannot move on before we mention Dr. Sarah April.
Yeah, Tara Ox. She was great. She's also another. It's interesting. Her career is kind of more in the writing and comedy kind of stuff, I believe. But she's great. She was great in this role. I love that and again, I'm totally biased, right? Because I come into this with these 2 books that I read that I love, where April and Sarah and Robert are in love, and so it's hard for me not to automatically be predisposed to liking her. But I feel like they pulled off the relationship really nicely. There's maybe a little too much canoodling on the bridge, but
Yeah, but
But I liked it. I liked her. I thought she was good in the role. I believed her as a doctor. I believed her expertise. So I totally bought it.
Yeah, and I mean, it was very, very powerful scene when they do the whole thing. I can't believe you took a commission. What was I going to do? Just come home one day and realize that you were gone? And she's like, my bags have been packed for weeks.
Mm-hmm. That scene. All right. Since I'm going to nitpick, I do have a little bit. That's on both of them. Because, like, if you're going to get on a starship and you're leaving on a mission, you're going to tell your spouse goodbye. So like the fact that neither one of them she knew she was getting on his ship. So I guess maybe she's not quite his fault. But like, he didn't tell her goodbye, like at some point, and realized that she was going too. I don't know, something. There's a bit of a disconnect there.
I took it as like Robert was so in his own head that even if she had just like held up a giant sign that says "I'm going on the Enterprise, see you in 3 years,"
right?
That he wouldn't have noticed because he was just so so mired in his own troubles.
Yeah.
Which brings us to a character that we have to talk about, John April.
Oh,
played by Barry Corbin. Yeah.
Yeah. So where do you remember him from?
John April or Barry Corbin?
Well, Barry Corbin. Let's just get that out of the way.
See, I kept having that whole he is so familiar, and I couldn't place him because my brain wanted to mix him up with Wilford Brimley.
Okay. All right.
Which really does them both a disservice.
Well, they both have the mustache. They both play the older gentleman, so I can totally see that. Do you want me to tell you where you know him from?
Yes, please.
Northern Exposure.
Okay.
110 episodes of Northern Exposure. He played Maurice J. Minifield. I don't really remember the character's name at all. However, he was a reoccurring character on Northern Exposure, and that's where you absolutely know him from.
Okay. Which explains why he pretty much chews up every scene that he's in.
He is possibly the best actor in the thing. Like, he has his scenes, he doesn't have a lot, but dang, he's good. I mean, he's really good. Really, really good. It's like you see him and then you see sort of the fan film actor and you're like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, I see the difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's not like a nitpick on any of the actors.
Oh, not at all, no.
Everybody gives 110%, and they're definitely, like, I will put this out here, everyone in this is probably a better trained and experienced actor than most of what we see in some of these fan films.
Yeah, well, a lot of these folks are established actors. Again, we've got some more to get to that may surprise you as well.
Okay, well, rattle them off, Shag.
Okay, so the Commander McCain, who was like the security officer, had like an Australian accent kind of thing. He was like the tough guy who was always ready for action. Played by Paul Tefler. And he was a big dude. He was like the big muscle bound, and there was a little bit of flirting with him in the Andorian a little bit. He was a regular for a while on Vampire Diaries. So I mean, he's got some creds. He's an established actor who's done stuff. He's been on Days of Our Lives, like 500 episodes. This guy's got some chops.
Okay.
Since he's a vampire.
Who is he on Vampire Diaries? Because that's my daughter's favorite show ever.
Okay, well, now that I look, it was only 3 episodes. I thought he was in more, but okay, he was in 3 episodes as Alexander. So my mistake that he wasn't in as many as I thought he was. But 521 episodes of Days of Our Lives. The guy's got some acting chops. He's Australian, which means he's freaking attractive. So anyway, he's great. He's got some acting background there. Then this one surprised me. So Commander Young, who was the dude with the beard, who was running the transporter, and he goes out on the spaceship the Enterprise. He's the one who goes out on the Enterprise to deactivate or to, I don't know, fix the ship, whatever, right? He just seemed kind of generic, right? I didn't think much about him till I looked him up on IMDb, and I'm like, holy crap, that's Shining Knight from the Stargirl TV series.
No freaking way.
It is. So that blew me away. So I was like, oh, Okay. Once again, another actor with some real acting chops here. Surprise. Who else do we have? We'll talk about Robert April in a minute because he's kind of the big dog, right?
Mhm.
Let's see. The Robert Brian Davis, who played, oh gosh, he played the Admiral guy. I'm getting to it. He played Admiral Taylor. He's the one who pretty much was kind of a dick and forced April to go on the mission. He really pressured him. Well, he's been in a ton of stuff. He's been in one of the Taken movies. He's oh gosh, his credits go on and I'd seen him in a lot of stuff, just not necessarily as a lead, but he always seems to show up and stuff. So I definitely recognize the guy. The third Taken movie that is Taken 3 is the one he was in there. He's in Doom Patrol at one point. Anyway, he's been in a bunch of stuff, so he's quite established as well. So I guess the one to talk about though is Robert April. So played by Robert Pralgo. I don't know how do you say that?
That's how I would say it. But,
okay.
I say names almost as well as somebody here says nuclear.
I don't like you. So, so he has credits going all the way back to 1994, as far back as Matlock.
Matlock.
Yep. Now he was in 8. Here's for your daughter. He was in 8 episodes of The Vampire Diaries as Mayor Lockwood.
Ah, okay.
And let's see what else. Oh gosh, there's a lot of stuff he's done. I mean, he's got his IMDb page is probably the longest one here.
Yeah, I'm clicking on it now, and holy cow, Avengers Endgame and Infinity War.
See, there's the interesting thing where I was getting to. He's not only an actor, he's also a producer, and he was involved with a lot of Marvel films. I don't know whether. Hold on, I'm getting myself a little turned around here. If he produced on the Marvel movies or not, but let's see. He was in Loki. He was in Black Widow. He was in, as we said, Infinity War and Endgame. Now, and in those cases, he would just read in. He'd be with the other actors, right? Mm-hmm. And he would read in Thanos' part, stuff like that. So some films he had a bigger role, so other ones he didn't. Loki, he's just a timekeeper on the set. So that's probably where. If we were to dig in deeper here and see, he probably was. This just his actor roles. Here we go. I'm going to go to producer real quick. Yeah, I screwed that up royally. You talk for a minute.
Let's see, just a couple other things here. Avengers Assemble, Nick Fury TV series. What?
Yeah, he's been all over the place. So, okay, as a producer, he was not involved as a producer with the Marvel stuff. Sorry, but he's been a producer on a lot of stuff. The guy's got a huge career, and you could see it. I mean, he was a really good actor. It's interesting to look at a guy like that who is clearly a Hollywood actor, right? That guy is the real deal. But you can kind of see the bleed through of where fan films are different, and fan films are different than major Hollywood productions in costuming and lighting. And well, again, these people are amateurs, like you said. They're doing this they have real jobs. They're doing this on the side for fun. So I'm not being critical, but I am saying you can see pictures of Robert Pralago, however you say his name, in big Hollywood productions, and he looks great, right? He looks slick, he looks handsome, he looks daring. But you put him on those fan film, studio lights that somebody could afford and do, and some of the face doesn't show up as strong. He doesn't look quite as much as a leading man. The shirt, the sleeves are a little too long. You can see the undershirt, the shape of the undershirt underneath the tunic, things like that, where I'm not faulting him. And I'm not even faulting the costumers. I'm just saying you start to see the differences between what Hollywood spends on a film and what people can afford when they're doing it themselves.
Okay. You're talking about all his wonderful chops here. He has 6 wins and 2 nominations at Action on Film International Film Festival USA, apparently.
Wow.
And a few other places. So he has a 2022 winner for Best Actor in a one-shot, in something called One Shot. 2018 winner Best Supporting Actor for Unraveled. 2018 nominee Best Supporting Actor, Trouble Is My Business. Hollywood Short Fest, he's a 2022 winner, Best Actor in One Shot. Whatever this One Shot is, we need to check it out.
Yeah, like I said, he's the real deal.
He's going back to 2013 even for stuff. So,
well, keep in mind that would have been early in his career probably because 2015 is probably when he agreed to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Although, I take that back because, like I said, he was acting as early as '94. I apologize. But 2013 is when he started getting accolades, I guess, is what we're saying.
Yeah. And that's just for whatever, I've never heard of any of these films, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yep.
You know.
So there's one more actor I wanted to talk about, and I'm wondering if there's something I was missing. Vince Canales played Lieutenant Commander Corbin, and he was, I guess, the science officer. He was the bald dude with the weird eyes. Was he supposed to be an alien of some sort? Because his eyes were weird, and his speech was very stilted and weird. Like he spoke in a strange way to deliver his lines. That wasn't someone struggling to remember their lines. It was intentionally stilted in that way. And I was like, is he supposed to be an alien? I wasn't sure what was going on there.
Yeah, I kind of got that sense, like he was sort of supposed to be kind of like, he had the contacts in to give him the glowing eyes, and he kind of had like little pointed ears, but he wasn't a Vulcan because he clearly, like, they all address the Vulcans as the Vulcans. They're still like, they're like the mythical creatures kind of thing. Like Vulcans exist, but they're so far above us that we can just call them the Vulcans. So I'm not sure, like, if he was supposed to be just kind of like generic alien number one as far as like being non-human or what.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It was interesting, though. I liked it. At first, I was like, what's going on with this character? And then as the film went on, I really got to like the character. I was like, oh, I want to know. Talk about a supporting character that could lead an episode. I totally wanted to know more about him. Now, his acting career goes all the way back to 1993. Not any big roles that you would have heard of. I mean, like, he actually made it into some superhero stuff. Like, he's in an episode of Black Lightning. He's actually in Black Adam, but like a really minor role, things like that.
Hey, he's Wizard number 6.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's better than I've done, but I'm just saying.
Shag, you and I could only dream of being man in van on WandaVision.
That's fair. Okay. I'm on board with that.
I hate the credits on some of those things. But,
right. Those poor people.
Oh, man. Okay. You mentioned the costumes. Like, what did you think of their uniforms?
Again, for a fan production, the costumes look great. They really did. They nailed the Starfleet uniforms. They kind of had that. They didn't look exactly like they did in the Cage. They sort of modified them a bit, and I think they did it in a good way. I think they made them a little more functional. They found some middle ground, and I think they looked good. What about you?
Oh, I really enjoyed them. They look good on the film. I do have like a little nitpick. Like the women's uniform is very cleavage friendly.
I'm confused. Why is this a problem?
Well, if you're Power Girl and you have the boob window and not the yellow and white, yeah. Anyway, no, that was the only thing. Like I just really assume most women in Starfleet don't bend over in front of anybody.
I'm guessing that was the Blue Andorian.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean she was clearly supposed to be the equivalent of the sexy green lady from Star Trek, right? Because she was blue, and that's what they were going for. And bless them, they were trying to be faithful to the original series. That's what they were trying to go for.
But I do like her. There's something in translation that doesn't, because when you were talking about the muscly dude hitting on her, like, you want to get a drink, and she's like, yes. Imbibing liquids is a requirement for nutrition or whatever,
Yeah.
Humans are not the only ones who intake liquid.
It was fun. Again, it adds a little bit of quirkiness to the cast, which was fun. Now, you mentioning the uniforms is something worth talking about, because this production, again, started in 2015, released in 2020. So when was it filmed? Probably 15, 16, 17, probably by then. And Star Trek Discovery, season 2 is where they introduced Pike, and they introduced the old retrofitted Enterprise, right? Like the classic series Enterprise, but done for fancy new TV. And that was in January of 2019 is when that gets introduced. So when they were filming First Frontier, I'm hedging my bet that none of that had aired. So they were doing all this in a vacuum. They hadn't seen new Starfleet redesigned uniforms, any of that kind of stuff, because Pike shows up in the yellow redesigned outfit. So again, credit to them for sort of making the cage outfits a little more functional. And it probably was frustrating, I imagine, for the people who made this film to start the film sort of in a vacuum. And by the time they release it, Pike's already and the Enterprise is already out there, and they're already talking about Strange New Worlds by that point. So it was probably a little frustrating to have started before then, and then by the time you're done, there's something out there that's not competing. That's not the word I'm looking for, but something for people to look at and reflect. Because by the time Strange New Worlds debuted in 2022, and we had a Robert April by then, right, played by an African American actor. Mm-hmm. So again, people see the comparisons.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, it's like you said, it was in a vacuum. Essentially, it was, as you like to put it with the Doctor Who stuff, it was wilderness years. It was, this was an era that was going to be completely untouched. There was no indication Paramount was ever really going to go back and talk about anything pre-Kirk ever again.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and then like midway through production, like you said, it was announced, hey, guess what? There's we're going back to the past.
Yep. Well, Discovery started in 2017. But again, wasn't touching Pike, wasn't touching Kirk, any of that until 2019. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we're going to be critical, I do have one critical thing that I feel is a fair criticism, but they acknowledge it right on the YouTube notes, right then and there, which is the sound.
Yeah.
The audio, whether it be dialogue or music or special effects sound, it is very inconsistent. There's times where the dialogue's hard to hear. I watched it with closed caption.
The captions were wonderful.
Yeah, I watched it with closed caption to make sure I caught everything. So but sometimes the dialogue's hard to hear. It's would have been fixed in ADR probably. Sometimes the music's too loud. Sometimes the special effects too loud. It is inconsistent, which does make it take you out of the film a little bit. But again, as a fan production, and they acknowledge that they wish they had more time to fix the audio. So I don't fault them for it much.
No, and one other thing while we're on nitpicks, this film is like the best commercial ever for getting YouTube Premium, because otherwise you will be interrupted with ads about every 8 minutes, and it's going to come up like right in the middle of somebody's best line, I promise you.
Huh. Well, interesting. I don't have YouTube Premium.
Or put a good ad blocker on.
Well, I didn't have that experience. I didn't get blocked. I didn't see a single ad.
Really?
Yeah. I wonder why. I watched it on a Google device. I wonder if that's it. Like an Android tablet. I wonder if that has something to do with it.
That could be.
And I was logged into YouTube as, my profile. I don't know. That's strange. I didn't get any ads when I watched it. Huh.
Strange. Your experience may vary, folks.
There we go. So I did notice an Easter egg, which I thought was kind of cool. And I might be wrong, but I feel pretty confident that this was an Easter egg. In Robert April's quarters, we spent a few scenes with him sitting at, a desk or something, or a chair in his quarters. Behind him is a framed photo. I don't know. Did you happen to notice that?
Is that the alleged photo of a certain actor?
I don't know where you're going with that.
No? Okay.
Well, did you read something? I mean, is there something out there about this? This is just me, what I think. Was there something out there I missed? Just say what you're thinking.
You keep going.
Okay. I didn't do any research on this. This is just me eyeballing something going, that it looked to me very, very much like a famous photo that I've seen many times of Gene Roddenberry. Of him standing like on a porch with a railing or something like that. I've seen this particular photo of Gene Roddenberry many, many, many times, and they didn't do a close up of the framed photo. So and it's hard to tell. And I'm watching on like a a 10-inch, 12-inch tablet, but it sure looked to me like that's a framed photo of Roddenberry. So what were you thinking it was a framed photo of, like Shatner or something?
No, there is in the credits there is mention of. They had gotten permission to use the likeness of Jeffrey Hunter, but I didn't catch it.
Pike?
Yeah, but I didn't catch where they had put it in there.
Huh. Okay. No, I don't know. I don't remember seeing. Huh. Yeah, I don't know. Nothing's coming to mind. All right.
Okay, so what about the Saren? I know you've got to have an opinion on it because their design looks like it should have been straight out of John Pertwee era Doctor Who.
Yeah. Okay. So the Saren. I went back and forth on them. At first, I was like, "What?" But then the more I started thinking about it, and I started thinking about those early aliens, right, from Star Trek Classic Series 1, I was like, okay, if I put this in perspective and think, okay, when the series started in 66, this is what the effects look like. Well, this is supposed to be like 10 years before that, so the effects for 56, I don't know. The aliens look a bit hokey, but at the same time, the physicality of them sort of fits with TOS, I feel like. I don't know. Am I off base here? What do you think?
No, I mean when you're talking about, a show that Nomad is just a big, basically oversized model on a stick that
Yep.
the camera is in the right position to not see the stick.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be your universe destroying monster of the week.
Yep.
A guy that's covered in a bunch of junk from your garage, basically, that pretty much works. Plus, for the most part, they are kept mostly in shadows.
Yep.
Except for like the one attack there in the like shuttle bay, and when you see it on the bed in
the sick bay. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I can't think of words.
So the only the aliens. Okay, I will accept the aliens as TOS, quality, if you will. My only real complaint about the aliens, it's not even a complaint. Never mind. It's really a discussion point, which is I feel like while the physicality of them and their zappy rays and stuff like that felt kind of TOS, I don't know if their demeanor really fit the TOS era, because I mean they were sort of creepy. Very Geiger aliens, kind of thing. The creepy jump out and slice you or eat you kind of vibe. I feel like, very aliens, Sigourney Weaver with a flamethrower kind of aliens. And I don't know if that really fits the TOS idea of bad guys. I don't know. They felt a little too black and white. Oh, these guys are bad guys and there's absolutely no redeeming qualities of them, so it's okay for us to blow them up. That didn't feel very TOS to me.
Yeah, I was wondering how you felt about they only exist to murder.
Yep.
Okay, but they don't murder their own species. They just go and, like it's not even like in Next Gen where a lot of races kind of get pigeonholed into one thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally, like to boil it down, this is like the Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, there's a monster in that cave. Go kill it.
Right. And there's another piece of it too. So they're not just base crazy creatures, because these creatures, and this is where I feel like this is probably my only script complaint or plot complaint, is they treat them like cave dwelling with a little bit of space travel, crazed monsters who want to kill, right? But then you demonstrate them clever enough to infiltrate the Enterprise, plant a device, and not murder everyone that they can get their hands on. Instead, they have hidden aboard the ship and planted a device. They're in such a way to, subterfuge, I guess is the word I'm looking for. That's not a trait I would expect from a race that's only about murder. I would not expect subterfuge.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that. You almost kind of like want to chalk it up to like, they got halfway through the script and realized, well, maybe we want them to actually do things.
Well, or they're like, we need to get from point A to point B. How do we do that? Sort of thing. And again, we sound so critical, and that's not the intention. This is a lot of fun, folks. It's Star Trek. Star Trek, as a fans, we have to look at every little angle.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, like, this is, as I said, if it's on the show, we more or less are recommending it from the get-go.
Yeah.
It's the fact, we're going to be honest. We're going to expose, like, the sometimes you don't want to see how the sausage is made kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, it is what it is. And once again, none of these people got paid for doing this.
Right.
They did it out of love.
Exactly. Well, I do wonder if the lead actor got paid, because he's like a real Hollywood guy. So
yeah, I'm sure. Like,
I'm sure Nichelle Nichols got paid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure there was some kind of compensation, but it wasn't like
no one's getting rich off this thing. That's for sure. So one more. This is more than an Easter egg. This is just a straight up nod, and I'm wondering if you caught it. Did you catch the name of the shuttle they were flying around in?
The Sagan?
Did you catch the name of the shuttle they were flying around in?
Was it not this? Okay, no, I guess I didn't.
Okay, well, name some famous shuttles that everyone knows the name of.
Galileo.
Galileo, very good. Galileo is famous for what?
For being on Star Trek, Shag.
Or studying the stars, maybe, right?
Fine.
Okay.
Give me your middle school learnings.
Well, this shuttle was Tyson, as in Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Okay.
So I thought that was pretty cool. I want to say one of the Star Trek shows had a shuttle Sagan, as in like Carl Sagan as well, but I can't remember if that's factual or I just saw that in a Star Trek book or something. I don't know. But so when I saw Tyson, I'm like, oh, that's nice. That's a nice modern day nod. I like that.
Oh, okay.
Way to pay attention to your subject matter.
Excuse me, I was over here writing a 2-page synopsis. That left out half the movie.
Because you can't take it from Wikipedia because there isn't one.
No, trust me, I tried.
Yeah. And my last real note was just I like how they built in the very Star Trek 6. Like Star Trek 6 has one of the greatest Star Trek moments, of the most cathartic Star Trek moment, when they all yell fire and they blow up the bird of prey, right? Like Kirk is so dramatic. It's like they finally figured out how to hone in on the bad guy, bird of prey, and he's like fire, and you got kind of that moment. You got April to say fire at the right moment to destroy the virus spreading weapon, and it was great. So it was a nice big yes kind of moment. Punch the air. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and the bridge shot you get after that with right before the log entry and everything, that is, after you're coming down from your endorphin high, you get to see all your lovely ship and, bridge crew and everybody. And you're just like, okay, I can watch the adventures of these people every week.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen more. Like, they did that Star Trek Continues show, which was, and that was recreating Kirk and Spock and Bones and all that. But I could see more fan film adventures of this crew. I'd be like, okay, I'm down with Robert April. Let's do this.
Yeah. And while you brought it up, I just want to make a note. Star Trek Continues will not be covered on this show.
Understood.
Lead actor, certain issues. Anybody who's curious, look it up.
I will say, if you are able to separate the art from the artist, they're definitely worth watching. So, meaning mentally, if you can compartmentalize, and unfortunately, I feel like you have to do this with almost any production nowadays, because it seems like there's somebody horrible in everything nowadays. And so if you can separate the art from the artist, and I have to do this a lot with comic books.
That's true.
So if you can do that, they're worth watching. It's just don't give them any money because you don't want to support that guy.
Yeah, exactly. So, the only other thing I have to mention is Harry Mudd.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a really fun stinger. Yeah. I didn't see that coming. And that guy that guy was so funny. He was just like, hey, what's going on? I mean, he really leaned into the smarmy, more 20th century kind of guy, or 21st century guy, I should say. But I loved it. It was exactly like, okay, that's a great update for Harry Mudd.
Yeah, I love it. He's just, hey, what are you two ladies getting into tonight? Not you. Well, all right.
That was fun.
All right. So, short version, go out and watch it. Star Trek fans will surely enjoy it. People who are not overly huge Star Trek fans, I'm sure you'll probably enjoy it too if you like compelling space drama or, just special effects.
And you can't help but appreciate the scope of this fan film project. I mean, an hour and 20-minute running time, tons of visual effects. So much of it is dependent on the visual effects, on the models, on all of this stuff, using recognized sets that everyone knows in and out. So if there's a knob in the wrong place, some nerd's pushing his glasses up and fixing his pocket protector and going, wow, actually on the con station, that knob should be over here. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on this creative team to work within the boundaries of something you already know incredibly well and tell a good story with great effects, with great costumes, with all that kind of stuff, great acting. And they did a hell of a job given the pressure they would have been under.
Absolutely. Okay. So, Shag, I do appreciate you joining me here for this.
Am I allowed to leave the basement now?
There is no leaving the basement. Obviously, but, before you try to, as I'm sure you will, do let people know where else they can find you online so they know what to block, of course.
Sure, absolutely. You can find me over at the Fire and Water Podcast Network. I'm one of the co-founders of the network. We've got tons of shows about all kinds of pop culture things, primarily comics, but we've got other stuff on music and television shows and all kinds of stuff. We've got literature. We've got, you name it. And I myself, personally, I am involved with some comic book shows about Justice League International, the Bwahaha podcast, about Who's Who. I'm involved with this JSA Presents, which is all about the Justice Society of America. And then I've got my own show, which is sort of my brand, I guess you will, which is Once Upon a Geek. And there I talk about whatever I want to talk about, whether it be comic books or science fiction or books or family or just being a geek, all kinds of talk with my daughter, whatever it might be. I have an episode of Once Upon a Geek at least once a month, or the goal is to have one once a month. And so you can also find me on Twitter as Once Upon a Geek or Instagram as Once Upon a Geek Podcast. You can find me on Threads and Facebook and all the socials. Maybe not Blue Sky yet. Waiting on my invite. You can send that over to me, Clinton.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on mine too.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I again, when the first time I saw this, I was so excited about it. I reached out to you and said, let's do this one. And that may be a fictitious story. Maybe you reached out to me. I don't know. But we're going to go with my version because I like it better. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk about it. Thank you.
Yeah, anytime. Because, you're not leaving. You certainly can't, call the Enterprise and have yourself beamed up a la Gene Hendricks or anything like that.
Well, I see a window over there that I'm going to try and crawl out in just a minute, but...
Darn you for being thinner than I am. Okay, folks. So while Shag tries to scramble out the window, we'll see what happens. I'm sure the lawn sprinklers will come on or something. But while hilarity ensues, we will take a quick promo break, and I'll be back with some listener feedback.
Imagine a podcast that celebrates the things we love. Why spend time being so angry and cynical about our fandoms? Join me, the irredeemable Shag, for a show where we're just trying to be happy. The Once Upon a Geek podcast. Our discussions focus on a variety of geeky subjects that we're passionate about. While the topics will be ever-changing, our focus will be on science fiction, comic books, what it means to be a geek in this world, and other nostalgia-fueled ideas. Life is short. Focus on the positive. Find your joy. The Once Upon a Geek podcast, part of the Fire and Water Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, thanks for sticking with me. This is of course the feedback portion of the show. I want to give another quick word of thanks to Shag for joining me down here. He did manage to shimmy through that little window somehow. He kind of had to lose his pants in the process though, so if anybody sees a guy running around, kind of in his skivvies, do call the authorities. He is a danger to himself and others and needs to be locked up immediately in the nearest Arkham Asylum affiliate. All right, so last episode, which covered One-on-One, a Superman film, got likes, shares, retweets, all the social media love from James at JMcLaughlin83, Chris Statos, Delvin, Superman Radio Revisited Podcast, Laurel, Secret Wars and Beyond, Pat Sampson, Matthew T. Cody, Magazines and Monsters, Gregory Litchfield, Chris at BTO and Batbooks, Gene Hendricks, and Rad Adventures. There apparently was no direct feedback on the last episode, but that's okay. I do appreciate all the social media love. That's what helps get the show noticed. I do want to give a quick word of thanks to the Crusader Club members out there. We couldn't do these shows without all of you. And I'm going to keep the feedback kind of short since we ran a little, extra long on the episode itself. So I'm just going to say thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for listening this far. Thanks for joining me. And I hope you come back for another Fan Film Friday.
Today you can take your telephone, your cell phone. You can make a movie on that. And if it's a really cool movie that's funny and it's dramatic or whatever, you can post it on YouTube.
If you want to make films and you want to tell stories, you can do it.
After all art is experience.
But
if you're obsessed with film and you love to tell stories and you love working in that medium, then that'll give you the strength to be persistent.
Let everyone know they're being recorded. Hey, Shag, you're being recorded.
I don't believe you.
Do.
They go into space. They go really fast. They shoot some stuff. They win.
Who shared my show notes with you?
See how easy that is? After these messages, we'll be right back.